if it is the case that God the Son didn't actually suffer the passion, then in John 3:16, one of the most quoted verses of the
Mhm.
Bible, what did the Father give up? Right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Well, I'm not trying to, belittle or anything, but it sounds like he just kind of gave the body to be bruised and beaten and to die,
Yeah.
but he didn't give his, he didn't see that the person who's intimately connected with him as part of our understanding the Godhead or in yours the Trinity, that person wasn't affected at all.
Yeah.
So what is God giving up in that verse? And I believe personally that when coming from a classical theist idea, that I would say the hypostatic union is probably the weakest link of the Trinity.
What they're wanting to say is there are three things to keep in mind here. You've got the human nature, the person, and then the divine nature. And when you're predicating of different things, you got to keep in mind what you're predicating of. And the
Mhm,
hypostatic union is supposed to be somehow these two natures are united in this person.
mhm.
How? No one will tell you how. And that's like, and like when I published on this, like I'm just like, this is just a black box. Like no one will tell me. They just tell me it just is an ineffable mystery. And everyone's like, yeah, what's the problem with that? And I'm like, because you're not telling me how any of this is supposed to work. So if you don't tell me how it's supposed to work, it's hard to figure out what's orthodox and what's not orthodox because it's all unspeakable.
My question is, if anything is like atemporal, is outside of time, would you say by definition it has to be immutable?
If it's outside of time, it has to be immutable. I would say by principle, yeah.
Okay, so but the person you would say along with the nature both are outside of time, right? They're both atemporal.
Yeah.
Okay, and so in the incarnation, you have the person who is outside of time, he's atemporal, and then he assumes a human nature, right? And so, by definition, the human nature is mutable, right? It experiences change and it's in time and all these things. So, does the person who is atemporal, because he's located outside of time, does he experience any of that change?
Not through like his divine nature or anything like that. We wouldn't even say the person himself experiences it, rather the nature that he has or the nature that he like indwells in experiences it.
So the person doesn't experience any of that, just the human nature. And so,
Right.
like, I guess my question is, in what way is that really like God becoming flesh if the person doesn't really experience it in any real way because they're outside of time and immutable?
Yeah. Well, because we believe that since the person indwells in the nature, right, in the human nature, that even though that it's not the person himself changing, right, we can say that he understands the change of the human nature because he's indwelling in it without him himself changing.
So he understands it without experiencing it. Is that how you would say it?
Because he's experiencing it in his human nature, because human nature is truly his, right? But it's just not him experiencing it in his personhood, but rather in his nature.
So you've got one person with two natures. And the one person, Jesus Christ, he gets properties from both natures somehow. This is what's called the communication of the idioms, or the communicatio idiomatum, if you want to throw around some unnecessary Latin. But the claim is the properties somehow fall on the person. So what you have is this statement that like when Jesus is incarnate, he is temporal and he is timeless. Well, that's a contradiction. That's a contradiction. Well, what they try to do is they'll try to say, well, it's only the divine nature that has the property of timelessness. It's only the human nature that has the property of being temporal. Logically, like you're like, okay, cool, that's a fine point in terms of the semantics, but want to know what like the metaphysics, like how does that actually work?
And like, is there any like example of that could be given where like a person doesn't experience it at all, but like somehow has it? Like, is there any other example we could give
No, the
that
reason
that
why
could
there
be
wouldn't be
explained?
another example is because we don't believe that persons exist prior to the human nature with another nature. The reason why he's able to is because he exists prior to the human nature with another nature. and so he's not dependent on the human nature. But we're all dependent on our human nature, so it wouldn't make any sense for us.
Okay, so there's no other example of it, but so we're saying he exists prior to the human nature. The person doesn't experience it, but he somehow does experience it in the human nature, but that's not communicated to the person outside the human nature. Would you agree with that?
Right, like the human nature. You can say it's communicated, but not communicated in the way that the person himself changes.
Also, if you're a impassible person, to be impassible just means you cannot be moved or influenced by anything outside of yourself for your beliefs, your emotions, your actions, which entails you cannot suffer. Mm-hmm. So a being that is identical to impassibility, a person that is identical to impassibility, so it's impossible to suffer. Somehow that thing that's identical to the inability to suffer is suffering.
If it's outside of time, it has to be immutable. I would say by principle, yeah.
But the person, you would say, along with the nature, both are outside of time, right? They're both atemporal.
Yeah.
What's doing the suffering? This is a good question to ask.
We wouldn't even say the person himself experiences it, rather the nature that he has, or the nature that he like indwells in experiences it. Even though that it's not the person himself changing, right? But we can say that he understands the change of the human nature because he's indwelling in it without him himself changing.
And the answer is really scary. What's doing the suffering is not actually the divine person at all. It's a human soul and a human body that's supposed to have this intimate relationship with this divine person. So this human soul and this human body are doing all the suffering, while the divine person's just feeling nothing but pure happiness. Okay. This sounds like two people.
If it is the case that God the Son didn't actually suffer the passion, then in John 3:16, one of the most quoted verses of the Bible, what did the Father give up? Right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Well, I'm not trying to, belittle or anything, but it sounds like he just kind of gave the body to be bruised and beaten and to die.
Yeah.
But he didn't give his, he didn't see that the person who's intimately connected with him as part of our understanding the Godhead, or in yours the Trinity, that person wasn't affected at all.
Yeah.
So what is God giving up in that verse?
Yeah, this is a point that Robert Jensen, who's a 20th century theologian, he brings this up as well. He looks at the Tome of Leo, which was passed around after Chalcedon, and he's like, this maybe not even maybe it's not even a story. Maybe it's something worse. You've got God the Son, who's just like impassible in this state of pure bliss, and then some other guy over here is just suffering and dying, and we're like, oh yeah, that was God, even though it wasn't at all. He's like, this is a disaster. Like, what kind of being is this that would, like, a God that would allow this to happen? Like, so I think you lose what's going on in that verse that you bring up, but you also have this view of like, so you worship a God who says he cannot suffer in any way, shape, or form, and then he's like, oh, but I suffered over here in this guy. I mean, not really, but wink, wink. Is that a being worthy of worship? That doesn't seem right.
Just coming again, explain the Latter-day Saint aspect of this, like. For us, that's just a sad idea, right? Mm-hmm. That the divine Son, he who is the only begotten, he who is the premortal Jesus Christ, if he didn't actually feel the passion, like, for us, that destroys a lot of our belief that he came down, he condescended below everything. Mm-hmm. And in the Book of Mormon, it says that he took on not just sins, right? But we believe he took on your infirmities, your afflictions, right? Your sicknesses. Why? So that he would know how to succor his people, right? And I just believe that's beautiful. And if he actually didn't feel that, and even let me explain this. It even says in that same verse, the Spirit of God knoweth all things, but he did it. Basically assuming like he didn't have to do it, but he did it anyway that way. Mm-hmm. And so, I just believe that's beautiful, and I believe you lose that when you have this classical theist idea